We will now reconvene into open session. The time is now 7:07. Please join us for our Pledge of Allegiance tonight from Valley Ridge Elementary as our students lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, well, could you guys stand up? We'd like to recognize you guys tonight. Thank you so much for leading our pledges. So we have Isabel Sanchez. You want to wave? All right. We have Hassan. Is it Masood? Mahmoud. I'm so sorry. And then we have Grace Snyder. And we have Katie Snyder. Thank you guys so much. Well, welcome everybody. The meeting of the board are open to the public but are not meetings of the public. The Lewisville ISD Board of Trustees meets monthly in a regular meeting to receive reports from staff and take action of recommendations from the superintendent. The board receives the agenda and all the supporting documentation approximately 10 days in advance of regular meetings, which allow us to ask and receive questions to many of our questions in advance of the regular meetings. This change in protocol means lengthy discussion or a litany of questions on every agenda item of the agenda often is not necessary. And as a board, we should have appropriate knowledge and preparation for responses regarding the content of the meeting tonight. So regarding personal recommendations, would someone like to make a motion?
Ms. Cox, I move that all personnel recommendations be approved as presented by administration.
That's a motion by Ms. Prosnick. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Sells. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, appointment of Director of Fine Arts. Would somebody like to make a motion? Mr. Miller?
Ms. Cox, I would like to make a motion. I'd like to approve the appointment of the great Miss Amanda Drinkwater of Marcus High School of Director of Fine Arts as recommended by administration.
It's a motion by Mr. Miller. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Hassett. All in favor? 7-0. Ms. Drinkwater. Congratulations, Ms. Drinkwater. We're looking forward to that. Now our Chief Communications Officer, Amanda Brim, will now share with us this month's recognitions and student spotlight.
The Hebron High School volleyball team clinched its third consecutive UIL Class 6A State Volleyball Championship title, sweeping Seven Lakes High School in 3 sets with scores of 25-17, 25-14, and 25-15. During their final match, the Hebron Hawks connected with 47 kills and just 7 hitting errors. Hebron is one of only 2 volleyball programs to win at least 3 straight championships in the state's largest classification. This is the Hawks' 5th overall volleyball state title. In addition, team members collected the following awards. Senior Adonna Rollins was named the UIL Volleyball State Championship's Most Valuable Player, as well as District 5-6A MVP, and the Dallas Morning News All-Area Player of the Year. The state tournament team included Adonna Rollins, Annie Benbow, and Emma Clothier. Honors for District 5-6A First Team went to Adonna Rollins, Annie Benbow, Lauren Merrill, Emma Clothier, and District 2nd Team to Nicole Drunick and Jessica Stancliffe. Katie Farley and Blair Benbow received an honorable mention. The team is led by head coach Karen Keeney and assistant coaches Jennifer Bishop, Rachel Buckley, Montrell Pyron, and Callie Essery. Congratulations, Hawks. LISD is proud of you.
Thank you. I have 4 young ladies here tonight: Emma Clothier, Blair Bembo, Nadie Okamore, and Jillian Gallarda are all here tonight, but representing our crew. A lot of them are doing club practices tonight and things, but we appreciate you having us at the board meeting. And I will let you know that these girls have done a fantastic job. Some of the seniors have gone out with 3 state titles from their sophomore year to their senior year. So tremendous job by those seniors. But I will tell you that they are very proud to represent not only Hebron High School, but their community and Lewisville Independent School District. So we appreciate it.
Congratulations, Hebron. You girls did a great season, and we wish you well. So, hearing requests to address the board. Persons desiring to address the board must fill out a speaker card prior to the meeting. No representation shall exceed 3 minutes. The board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda. We have 2 cards tonight. So, Julie Mosley. Did you bring your guitar? Julie.
Have the microphone on. There we go. My name is Julie Mosley. I think I know all of you, and I do not envy your position in the least. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for making all of those hard decisions, one of which is the calendar. And I would just like, and I thought there were going to be a bunch of people here, but I fear that they saw what the results of the vote were, and they decided it was pointless to come talk to y'all. But they don't know you like I know you. And I choose to believe that the decision has not been made yet. And I would simply ask you to thoughtfully consider your decision. I get wanting to take exams before the holiday. I get it, would love to do that. I get wanting to get out before Memorial Day, and I certainly don't like getting out as late as we do. I'm disappointed that there was no compromise calendar, and that seemed very purposeful. And I will tell you that everyone I have talked to thinks it was very purposeful. and they were very disheartened by that. So I would you need 3 days. I found 2 of them for you already. The third one, surely we can come up with somewhere and start school, I don't have the calendar, but instead of that Monday after the 15th or the 18th or whatever it is, but not the latest Monday, not the earliest Monday, but one right in between. You could still possibly get the tests in before. You could still end by Memorial Day, I think. I think you just need to find 3 days. So I would and I know that wasn't one of the options, and maybe it's still not an option. I want to tell you a story about Tanner Mosley. He would be my son. He is not an academic kid. My other son is not an academic kid. It didn't hurt them to take their tests after they got back from break because they didn't really care. My bad. But we have the 3 best bands in the state. As I'm sure you're aware, UIL rules will prevent us from starting before October 1st, so we are cutting way, way, way into band time. As far as, and once school starts, we have even less time. So anyway, I'm getting nervous because I'm running out of time. And it should be noted that, anyway, y'all get what I'm saying. So I would just ask you to consider that. Thank you for what you do. Sorry I wasn't better prepared. Next time I'll have a song.
Thank you, Julie. Jay, is it Ruat? I'm sorry. Can you help me pronounce your last name?
It's a curse. It's Rad.
Rad.
Yeah.
Oh, you even put it highlighted, too. I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you.
I remember last time. Good evening, Superintendent Rogers, Madam President, members of the board. My comment tonight is based on the thoughts of the great American philosopher John Dewey, who some of you will recognize as one of the greatest minds in educational research in our modern era. Dewey advocated for a community of inquiry in which knowledge is co-created. It's ambiguous. Authority figures are fallible, and through participation in this community and reflection, we see ourselves as an example to others. Dewey took these ideas and applied them to the classroom as a community where teachers stir up thinking and guide inquiry. But I also want to say that I'm very happy to see that all of the members of this body have made this inquiry a virtue and a habit. Sometimes, though, as in any community, virtue can be corrupted by selfishness and by haughtiness and by an air of unquestionable authority. So as we finish this year and enter into the second half of the school year, I encourage you to put away haughtiness and selfishness, to recognize how truth can be ambiguous, and to continue to work together to build a community that sees inquiry as a habit and a virtue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jay. I appreciate it. Okay, now we will have a public hearing on the financial integrity rating system on the first report. Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Madam President. We have a PowerPoint to show this presentation. I'll need to go over and get the clicker. We are required to have a public hearing. The public hearing has been advertised as required by law on two separate dates. Those dates are listed here on the first slide to show that our compliance is that we've advertised this as required by law in the local papers. And so I'm pleased to announce that we have received the highest rating that's available. I believe we've received that rating every year that this first system has been in existence, so we're pleased to report another year of the highest rating. And the next couple of slides just detail each of the indicators that the Texas Education Agency uses to develop these ratings. The first 5 or so ratings are simple yes or no questions, and if you things such as was your audit done on time and did you default on your bond payments and those kinds of major financial benchmarks, and of course we've answered yes to all of those, that we've done everything on time and we've not defaulted and all that. So we're pleased that all of those are yes answers, and then the remainder of the indicators are metrics based on the financial statements that are submitted through the PEAM system. And so we have received the score that would enable us to have the A superior rating. And so each of those, and I won't bore you by going through every one of those to explain what makes up those indicators, but we have gotten the score of 92, which gives us the A rating. And so then the next indicator is really a disclosure, and we're required to disclose the superintendent's employment contract, and we've provided a hyperlink there that would take the reader to the website where they can see the superintendent's contract. And then the second disclosure that's required is reimbursements received by the superintendent or by board members, and of course we have each of those. Anyone who was a board member during the year ended August 31, 2016 is listed here. There is a bit of a time lag in this because the data are extracted from PEAM submission, so it's really kind of a year after the fact. So that's why you see some names on there that really haven't been on the board for a while now, but they are listed there because of the time period. And then the next disclosure has to do with outside compensation earned by the superintendent, and there's none to disclose. And this disclosure number 4 is gifts received by board members and executive officers. Again, there are none to disclose. And the disclosure number 5 is business transactions between the district and board members, and also none to disclose there. Other information really has to do with the financial awards that the district has received, and you'll hear about that in a later agenda item tonight, where our current year comprehensive annual financial report is presented by our audit firm. But our district does obtain the Government Finance Officers Association award for outstanding financial reporting, and we also get a similar report from the Association of School Business Officials International, and we anticipate the report that you'll hear about tonight will also qualify for those awards. And that's the quick version of the first report, and Madam President, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
This is a public hearing on the financial integrity rating system. It's now open. If there's any persons that would like to present or speak on this topic, please come forward at this time. Don't all come forward at once. Okay, hearing none, did the board have any questions? Ms. Hassett?
I would just like to thank staff for the work that you have done once again to maintain the superior rating that we have within the district. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Ball, will this be posted on the website?
Yes, ma'am, it will.
Okay, thank you. Okay. If there's no further questions, I declare the public hearing closed. Information items, bilingual ESL annual update. Dr. Rapp.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Rogers, we're pleased this evening to present to you and to highlight the work going on in bilingual and ESL programs in LISD. And before we get started, I just want to say we have members of the bilingual ESL team from elementary and secondary in the audience. We worked with communications. We want to say thank you to David Zamaripa on the communications team for producing an excellent video this evening, just like we did with CTE, to do our bilingual ESL annual update this year. One of the reasons we want to do a video in these cases is because it's a great way to tell our story outside of here and beyond. So I think you're going to be really pleased with the story that we have to share. And with no further ado, please roll that video.
In Lewisville ISD, we are proud of our bilingual and English as a second language programs that are offered at our elementary and secondary campuses. We offer language services to all students who qualify as limited English proficient. Our English language learner population has increased steadily over the years. In October of 2000, English language learners accounted for only 5% of the total student enrollment in LISD. As of October 2017, that number has increased to 16.25% of the total student enrollment, which means we have over 8,500 students participating in bilingual or ESL program services. The student enrollment represents a higher volume of English language learner participants in our elementary grades and a decrease in participation as students successfully achieve English language proficiency and meet state exit criteria. Research shows it takes students 5 to 7 years to become academically fluent in a second language. The families in our community represent a total of 82 different language backgrounds from all over the world. Of those language backgrounds, 61 languages are represented by students who are participating in bilingual or ESL services. The top 5 languages spoken by our English language learners are Spanish, Burmese, Korean, Vietnamese, and Malayalam. There are 2 different models for English as a second language program, content-based and pull-out ESL. In the content-based ESL program model, students receive language instructions from ESL certified and ESL trained teachers in all of their content area courses. This model is most often implemented at our elementary campuses where students receive all of their content area instruction from 1 or 2 ESL certified teachers. In the pull-out ESL program model, students receive language instruction exclusively through their English language arts classes with ESL certified and ESL trained teachers, while students remain in a mainstream instructional arrangement in the remaining content areas. Lewisville ISD currently employs 1,967 teachers who hold an ESL certification and serve our English language learners.
We support our students by making content comprehensible. We provide them content and language objectives so that they know where lessons are going and what skills they're going to be using. We provide academic vocabulary for them so that they can bridge that background knowledge that they might be lacking. We also give them sentence stems and sentence frames to support their oral language. Overall, this is a way for us to bridge their background knowledge and their achievement gaps between our ELL students and our English proficient students.
LISD also offers a robust dual language program for elementary students to gain academic proficiency in 2 languages, English and Spanish. The number of limited English proficient students participating in our 2-way program total 1,325. The number in the 1-way program totals 1,797. Our participation in transitional bilingual continues to decrease as we phase out this model. In addition to these numbers, 816 students participate in dual language as Spanish language learners throughout our campuses. This summer, we provided a language hour at our Lewisville library for our dual language learners within LISD. We had 20 to 25 students, both Spanish and English language learners, per week taking advantage of this experience. The bilingual and ESL programs support teachers throughout professional learning and book study experiences as they implement language strategies and embed vocabulary in their daily lessons. Last year, LISD staff implemented a newcomer backpack program. Every campus received a set of backpacks consisting of 10 different thematic units with ideas to support language learning. These units were supported with hands-on activities, print-rich materials, and journals to capture student experiences through their eyes as the author.
It helps easy to learn for my son. Still, we have like fun, but it's learning. So it helps a lot, the backpack. Every week is different activities, so every week we learn new things.
At the secondary level, one of the most successful programs continues to be the SOAR Academy, a summer language enrichment program for supporting overall academic readiness. The SOAR Academy occurs each June and includes dedicated time to focus on math, science, English language arts, social studies, sustained silent reading, verbal communication, and team building activities.
SOAR is one of my favorite things that we do here in LISD for our ESL students because it gives them the opportunity to come together during the summer to fill in that English gap so that they don't have as much of a gap during the summer not reading, writing, listening, and speaking in English. And it not only helps the students with their English proficiency, but it also gives them confidence in their English language so that the next year they can go back to school knowing that they have learned some new things and have better English vocabulary to be able to talk to their teachers and students about those things.
The theme for the 2017 SOAR Academy was You're in the Driver's Seat. Students studied motion and energy, designed rubber band cars, and competed against each other in distant races. Students also created advertisements to highlight their vehicle's characteristics. 230 English language learners participated in the SOAR Academy in June 2017. The Secondary ESL Liaison supports secondary campuses with professional learning.
To support my teachers, I have the opportunity to sit in on their PLCs and collaborate with them on ways to support ELLs, as well as work with them one-on-one during conference periods and observe students as needed.
Secondary teachers receive professional learning opportunities tailored to address the needs of language learners with the context of specific content areas. Secondary social study teachers have been studying linguistic support strategies that are most beneficial when teaching social studies to ELLs.
I think the thing that I've learned the most is you can never stop learning. Sometimes I feel like we might become complacent or compliant, or we feel sorry for them, and that's not actually the way to go. You just got to believe that they can do it, because the second you don't believe that they can't do it, then they don't believe it either. So you have to believe that they can do it and push them to realize that they're smart, and they will do anything that you believe that they can do.
I'm Esther Martinez, bilingual ESL administrator, and I support language learners.
I am Cheryl Holly Barron. I am the Language Acquisition Administrator. I support all elementary students learning English here in LISD.
I'm Danielle Emery, Secondary ESL Coordinator, and I support secondary programs for LISD.
I'm Sarah Guidry, Secondary ESL Coordinator. I support secondary programs in LISD.
I'm Tina Hamby. I'm a multilingual coordinator, and I support language learners.
I am Judy Musgrave, Spanish Language Arts Coordinator, and I support language learners.
I am Karina Watson, Multilingual Coordinator, and I support language learners.
And we are LISD.
We are LISD.
Nosotros somos LISD.
Jung Toila LISD.
우리는 LISD입니다.
We are LISD.
ഞങ്ങൾ LISD.
نحن LISD.
These LISD.
Ganito LISD Gansi. Janura di LISD Jantu Jantamya Pichati.
हम हैं LISD.
We are LISD. Student we are.
Musa Smisa LISD.
Nous sommes LISD.
Inya LISD. Nen. Nosotros somos LISD. Yonki LISD.
And we are Lewisville ISD.
Not only are we proud of the language programs that we offer and all the work that the campuses have going on, we're proud in learning and teaching to be able to support the work and support our teachers at the campus level and support our families and our communities in the many languages that we serve. So we feel like this video is a great example of two of our important cornerstones, and that's student learning and student experience. We had an opportunity at the last Curriculum and Programs Committee meeting to discuss our bilingual ESL programs as well. And then, of course, we have the team members here from Learning and Teaching that you saw in the video, our superstar video people that were nervous about how they looked, but it turned out great. They're here tonight to answer any questions as well.
Thank you, Dr. Rapp. To you and your team, do an amazing job for the students. We really appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions? Ms. Prosnick?
Yes, great video, great work, and I have the privilege of sitting on the committee, and great presentation to us as a committee, so I appreciate the work. As our ESL population is growing in the district, can you explain what avenues are available to our teachers to become ESL certified?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to ask Ms. Danielle Emery to come up and share the way that we help support our teachers in becoming ESL certified. As we talked about, one of the benefits of public education is having highly qualified and certified teachers to meet the needs of our kids.
Hi, thank you for asking your question. We offer several different course options to support teachers that want to work on that ESL certification so that they're not out there just trying it on their own. I facilitate an online course that's open year-round and help the teachers with what that material is going to look like on the test and just what the classroom experience is that they need to kind of wrap their head around. And then also I provide 3 or 4 times a year, I'll do 2-day live sessions where we do workshops on all the different instructional strategies and compliance background knowledge that they need to be successful on those tests.
And that's available to all of our teachers who are obviously not certified?
Yes, that is open to all of our teachers.
Ms. Sheffield?
I don't really have a question. It's more of a comment. For the last several years, several years ago, we had an invitation to attend that last day of SOAR, and so can I just ask that be added to our board calendar for this year, because I think that is just a wonderful opportunity for board members, if they're available, to come see kind of the culmination of all that work, and it's just so if we could just a note to just add that, I would love that.
Absolutely, we'll add that note. And then there was also a request at the Curriculum and Programs Committee to have on the calendar the newcomer backpack program that you saw in the video, as activities are going on with that to make that available as well.
Any other questions? Ms. Sells?
I would just like to know, how many teachers on an average become ESL certified per year? Do we have a number?
I'll ask Danielle if she has that number off the top of her head.
Just a rough.
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but most of my courses that I run have about 20 people in each of the live 2-day sessions. And then last year there were a total of 98 that were signed up in the online course at one time. But I don't know, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how many of them went through and completed that process.
But continued growth.
Yes.
Continued growth in that program. And are there any students that are wanting to do SOAR that we're not able to serve, or are we able to serve every student that's wanting to participate in SOAR?
The SOAR program, as we have had it, was for 6th through 12th graders that were currently receiving LEP services at one of our middle schools or high schools. There's no cap to that. So if they want to be there, we will take them. We provide the busing, we provide breakfast and lunch through that program, and it's free of charge to the families.
And no issues with staffing that then also?
No,
Okay,
that's all paid for
perfect.
out of the Title III grant funds.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have a quick follow-up question before you sit down, or maybe this is a Dr. Rapp question. So what does a certification look like? What is the time frame for that? How long does it take for a teacher to receive that certification? How many hours?
A teacher can sign up for that test at any time. Usually you can find a test date about 4 days out. It's a computer-administered test. And once they take the test, they would have their results within a week. They turn around and apply to have that added to their standard certificate, and that would take another couple of days to a week. So it's feasible for a teacher to start off the process and complete it within a month. To do the course with me or online, that would be just based on whatever their preference is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay. PD Place Annual Update. Dr. Coburn.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Very pleased to send this one right on over to our fabulous Director of Health Services, Melanie Mincelet, and a true friend to our school and community in the Executive Director of PD Place, Mr. Larry Robbins.
Good evening. I don't know about you, but I can't believe it's almost 2 years since the PD Place School-Based Clinic opened. Remember the cute little, I've got him up there eventually, the cute little balloon doctor that we had? Okay, so I want to refresh your memory on how it works. When our nurses see a student who is injured or ill and they don't have insurance or they're low on funds, maybe mom doesn't get paid till Friday and the kid needs to be seen now, or maybe they're already a PD Place patient, they can directly call the clinic and schedule an appointment. And in some cases it's instantaneous, and others it may be a few hours, but they really work with us to get the student in. One of the side products of this that I particularly love as a healthcare provider is the collaboration between our nurses and the nurse practitioners. They really are working together more and more to make sure that families understand treatment plans, that medication regimes are understood, and sometimes translation's difficult with all the different languages, and so they really do team up and follow up with each other to make sure that these families are served. When it comes to how much they're open, this past year they increased their hours to 14 from 12 from the previous year. Mondays and Fridays they're open 8 to 12, and on Wednesdays they expanded their time frame from 10 to 4, serving the afternoon area. We've got a nurse practitioner, a medical assistant, and a receptionist that works there. So in the past 10 months, 426 of our students, typical pediatric diagnosis, respiratory, cough, asthma, sore throat, strep, GI bugs, and the ever-popular ear infections. These statistics are, most of our visits come from the Lewisville feeder pattern, and with 8 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, DeLay and Creek Valley both referred kids. And this past month, we had a Marcus High School student seen at the clinic. I particularly like these numbers. They're returning to school. They haven't changed much from last year. 2% go back the same day, 60 the next. And we had a little jump in the miss more than 2 days. And when I looked at that information, it was from the flu or chicken pox, which the disease sequela requires you to be absent. So that was kind of explainable. And Mr. Robbins and I have talked about what our goals are for 2018, and he intends on increasing the services to include preventative stuff like vaccinations and also increasing the hours to 16 a week. Now, you know I normally dash away from the podium, but before I leave, I want to just tell you a story that happened recently. We have a single grandfather caring for his 7-year-old granddaughter. Single, you get the picture. Well, the little girl had been complaining of some mouth pain to the nurse, and the second visit, she called him, and she kind of figured out there's some sort of abscess going on. Well, the clinic was open, and he's a mechanic in Old Town Lewisville, and he came over and took her to the clinic and got the amoxicillin started, and at least could rid her of her pain. Now, of course, we have to deal with the dental side of that, but just to get her out of pain and for him to effectively be able to come over, do that, and he did go back to work. So just how our stories are trending and turning into how all family members can be affected. So I really appreciate your support in the school-based clinic. Mr. Robbins is here from PD Place, and Ms. Devers, the principal from Central, is here if you have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, Mr. Robbins, thanks for doing this, although we're doing this in partnership and providing a space for this. I guess it's good to hear these stories that are not fit the paradigm of a mother brings their student to school and has a need, but an uncle or a grandfather or somebody like that, because the intent of this is for PD Place to have a location at Central Elementary, but that anybody who needs the service can benefit from it, correct? Absolutely. To that end, where are we at on really promoting this with our other campuses? Melanie, maybe you can comment on our communications, but I know we visited some campuses where sometimes the principal was surprised, right, and they'd fit in that, but just a real opportunity for us to, maybe we get the resources. I mean, you get the resources, but we provide the facility for Monday through Friday for kids who don't go to LISD schools but have a need, right? What can we do to make this better, communicate better, make it more available, utilize it more effectively? Because Dr. Rapp once said to me, and I quote this all the time, kids that are hungry, scared, tired, or sick, or don't come to school, and some of those ailments keep them from that, we can't educate them. So,
well, I can speak from the school district side, and I don't really, the nurses are on the front line, and they're the ones referring and working with the parents. So principals' awareness of it is important too, but it's going to come from the nurse. The nurse has to make the appointment. And, I've got all 69 of them out there aware of it, aware of some other programs that we have. So, and as far as advancing the hours, I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Robbins.
Well, let me talk about both of those things for just a moment. So, quite honestly, one of the things that we worked through in the first year and a half of operation was how do we communicate throughout the district and how do we expand in the right framework. And I think we've really done a nice job in being able to effectively do both. All the kids that we see at the Central Elementary Clinic are not necessarily referred by LISD schools. Most are LISD students, but there are some who are coming from other parts of the area that are being scheduled by our own staff. And one of the great things about our ability to schedule is that we're seeing in real time what the Central Clinic schedule looks like on any given day. And so if we're getting calls at the clinic from parents that have a sick kid at that particular moment in time, but we're full at the Lewisville primary facility, we can send them to Central so that they're getting that prompt access to care just like everybody else is. In terms of expanding hours, part of it is a function of dollars and part of it is a function of scheduling and making sure that we can maximize the use of any particular facility where we have, and we continue to balance that, and we'll continue to look at that as we grow. Just a couple of other things to the story that Melanie told. The other wonderful part of that particular patient is that PD Play staff was able to provide counsel and information to that grandfather about how to access Medicaid for that particular child. The child is actually in foster care and is eligible, which just means that child has greater opportunity in terms of health care if something were to go wrong beyond something that we could treat for primary care. The other thing is that, and I just looked at this earlier today, is that there are 11 students who we have seen since the start of this school year at the school clinic who we prescribed medication to. We knew that they did not have access, they did not have the financial means to be able to provide to get that medication for their child, and PD Place was able to provide it. We believe in a totally holistic approach to medicine and a family approach in what we do. This just lets us do it that much better, and we thank you for your support.
Yeah, I would just close with, I think this is one where, sometimes we get evaluated on, are we partnering with the community because we're sharing our tennis courts or letting teams play on our nice AstroTurf fields and they don't have kids in LSD. This is an area where I think the partnership with the community matters. And you could carry it as far as for those who believe it. If you've done it under the least of these, you've done it under these. This is an opportunity for us to provide something that's non-traditional and where the schoolhouse, if you will, can have a facility for practitioners or medical professionals to come in and work together so little kids can be healthy, one, just to be healthy, and two, to get a better education. I think this is fantastic. And I would hope that I'm sure we are, Dr. Rogers, always looking at ways that we can expand this type of thing. A lot of us do attend PD Place, so I'll plug the fundraiser. I'll plug for that, right? There's opportunities to get involved in different initiatives and volunteering and giving money, but this is a great partnership, and I'm just really pleased that it continues to be so fruitful and helping, even just if it's a few, although it's helping more. What a great statement to our community and the families that move here and don't know how to get good quality medical treatment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Hassett? Yeah, that deserves a clap, I think so.
First of all, I'm thrilled that the numbers are trending mostly in a good way so that our children are returning back to the classroom so that they can learn. So that's a great news. But what are the preventative care besides vaccinations? What other preventative care are you going to start adding specifically?
Well, so we are already doing some preventive care visits at the central clinic. Our limitation is being able to do a preventive care visit that needs to include a vaccine because we don't have the vaccine storage yet at Central. We will be adding that. We've just received word that we've received donation of appropriate vaccine refrigerator, and so we'll be, once we add that and get it properly established with Denton County Health Department, we'll be able to start doing the vaccines as well. Probably not until the beginning of next school year, maybe just before we end. There's a lengthy process to be able to make that happen. But that's the difference. We're doing the regular preventive care visits, but if it requires a vaccine, we can do part of it at Central, but we then have to refer the child to Lewisville Clinic to get the shot.
How are the children identified for that preventative care? Usually the nurse knows the problem. So the preventive care visits would generally not be referred by the school nurse because the school nurse is only seeing the family in the case of a sick child unless there's an intervention that perhaps needs to take place. But we're referring children to the central clinic so that we can see them schedule that visit faster as opposed to some other time. We tend to do, next year we've begun the conversation about opening normally the central clinic hours coincide with whatever the central hours are. We may or may not be there during summer school. We're talking about opening the clinic a couple of weeks before the start of school for the next school year so that we can actually do some preventive care visits in the school prior to classes starting and do that vaccine administration at that point too. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Sells?
Thank you for that presentation, and I wanted to thank you especially for that slide that said that 60% would return to school the next day, because from personal experience with my children, whenever we've even gone to a private care, I think our percentage is about 0% for that second day. So that, to me, is just, like Mr. Miller said, if the kids aren't there, they're not learning. And so I just appreciate that, and I appreciate you putting that in there, and I'm sure that number is closer to my family's history when that clinic was not there. So thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Melanie, and thank you, Ms. Robbins, for the opportunity for our kids to get back in the classroom and keeping our kids healthy. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, report on utilization of high school allotment. Dr. Coburn.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, pleased just to provide you with some information regarding high school allotment. This falls under the student experience cornerstone, but certainly there's a lot of resource stewardship and student learning happening here. High school allotment is part of our overall general budget. We received $4.46 million. That's $275 per student, grades 9 through 12. That's from the legislature. Most of that money is earmarked for things like reduction of class size, advanced placement teachers, things that allow us to advance higher education for underachieving students. That's straight from the law in 2006. We do, as part of our budget planning process and in the spirit of being able to individualize and have some site-based opportunities for campuses to do a little bit more for their students with the greatest need, we are able to set aside some funds, $5 per, of course not, my page has gone away. That's okay, I can do this from memory. We set aside just over $400,000 that we are able to distribute at the campus level. The campuses, this is year 2 of doing this, to go through a process. It's basically a call for proposals. What would you like to be able to spend money on if you had some additional funds? How would you use it? What would you do? We then get together as a team, myself, the assistant chiefs of schools, and kind of pour through them and go through and figure out how much money can we provide to each of our schools. And this is middle school and high school. While the money comes from grades 9 through 12, it can be spent grades 6 through 12. The best story that I can tell you about this is that it has given us a very precise measure of tracking our high school allotment money. It is dispersed individually to each campus. It's given its own, codes, monitored very closely. We even had a specific instance last year. We had a campus that realized toward the end, gosh, I sure wish we had a little more. And we had a campus that realized at the end, well, gosh, we over budgeted just a little bit and had some left over. And literally within a half an hour, we were able to transfer money from one campus to the other and know at the end of the day that we had utilized that money to the penny to the maximum extent for our students that had the greatest need, for the intent for which that high school allotment money was designed. We really appreciate the flexibility that we all try very hard in our budgeting process to provide with high school allotment money. The feedback from principals has been very, very positive, positive enough that they basically said, can we do this the exact same way in year 2? Their money has been distributed and allocated this year. Every campus gets at least $2 per student at the middle school level, $5 per student at the high school level. And we were able to distribute $417,000 this year, and they're spending it, I assure you, on things like after-school tutorial programs, push-in tutors during the day, college visits, anything that we can do that builds college readiness, college awareness, or the academic skills necessary in order to be able to get college ready. I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Coburn. Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Miller?
Yes. I think as we've been approaching some dashboard discussions, this is one excited that the staffs are excited about it. I think this is a perfect example of where we should measure it, right? I know we don't always like to measure, but when we put this into credit recovery programs or different exam fees or AVID, whatever, that we can go back to a campus. I guess I'm just suggesting that it may come up in the future when we consider this again as to how the money was used at a campus level and the benefits that were derived because of that.
Yeah, again, it is part of our budget. We use over 80% of it is part of the general budget and has been allocated primarily towards staff for class size reduction.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Coburn. Report on the status of insurance claims resulting from the spring 2017 wind and hail damage. Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Madam President. We have an item in your board packet that lists the results of the damage that occurred on March the 26th, 2017, when our community experienced a hail and windstorm. We have in the insurance world, the term actual cash value really stands for the depreciated value of the various roofs that were damaged based on their respective ages. And the total of those damages summed up to $12,648,000. And the policy that we have has a $250,000 per occurrence deductible. And so that nets out to a little bit less than the $12,648,000. And then the company has already paid us $1 million in cash to help with some of the preliminary expenses, and we'll talk about that at a subsequent agenda item tonight when the board will consider appointing the architects to these projects. Our policy does have a replacement cost endorsement, and so the estimated replacement cost is $15,411,000. And so the process is that we would the company will pay us the actual cash value, or it's on your schedule. It's called ACV, and they will pay that less the deductible as soon as we sign the proof of loss form. The current discussions that we're having with the insurance company relate to a provision in the policy that says that the repairs have to be made within 24 months of the date of a loss. And as we said earlier, the storm occurred on March the 26th. It was October the 19th when we got the final report from the insurance adjuster. As you recall, the news over that 6-month period, that was not the only weather issue that occurred in the state of Texas during that period of time, and so the adjusters had a fairly significant backlog in their office, and so it took us until mid-October to get that report. So we're asking the insurance company to start the 24-month clock running on the date that we got that adjuster's report, to give us 2 summers to complete this work. And so once those negotiations have been agreed on, we will sign the proof of loss form, which will trigger the payment to us of the approximately $11 million for the actual cash value, and then we'll come back to the board. Tonight, on the agenda is to appoint the architects for these projects. Then the subsequent meeting will be we will conduct another step 2 in our competitive procurement process for our qualified construction manager at risk firms. We'll come back to the board with a recommendation to appoint firms to actually do this work, and then they will collaborate with the architects on the design, and we'll proceed with the work upon approval from the board. So we'll have the actual depreciated cost value in cash at the time those contracts are awarded, and then when the work is complete, whatever the actual replacement cost is, we will be paid the difference, assuming we get it done within the 24-month period that we're negotiating right now, which we currently estimate to be about $15.4 million. So that's just kind of the status of where we are on this. And as I said, a later agenda item tonight is to ask the board to appoint the architects to the respective projects. And so that's kind of the status report. And Madam President, I'd be pleased to address any questions the board might have on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Does anyone have any questions? Ms. Sheffield?
Do you have any idea when we might hear back from the insurance company regarding the timeline?
We have heard already from the broker that they have been in telephone contact with the actual insurance company, and they indicate that there's a positive response there, but we've not heard on a timeline. They've actually got the form for us to sign. We've delayed signing it until we can work this issue out, because the form itself mentions the 2-year deadline. We don't want to sign it until we have this worked out. So I think it will be soon, but I don't have a specific timeline.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Okay, discussion items. I think you're up again, Mr. Ball. Monthly financial report, including the bond report and the monthly investment report.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. This item is, of course, the routine monthly reports that are provided to the board. This one is for the 2 months ended October 31, and it's still fairly early in the fiscal year, obviously, at that point. It does show, I think, the takeaway from the income statement there is that the district's spending about between $38,000 and $40,000 per month is what it takes to operate the general fund, and it's early in the year. The tax collections really hadn't started to any significant level by the end of October, and the board also has the investment report as of October 31, and be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Anyone have any? Thank you, Mr. Ball. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Ball? No? Thank you. I think you're up again, Mr. Ball. You're popular tonight. So, proposed budget amendments for the general fund and food service fund for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2018.
Thank you, Madam President. These are fairly routine. They are, in order to carry on business through our fiscal year end, which is August 31, we're 2 weeks into the school year or so at that point, typically, or 2 weeks into when teachers have come back. And so in order to keep business going, we've got to be issuing purchase orders. And the end of the fiscal year comes, and the goods that have been ordered may not have been received, but state law says that the purchase orders lapse at the end of the fiscal year and they have to be reauthorized. And so this really is just the reauthorization of the purchase orders for which the goods were not received until sometime after August 31. And the good news on this is a much lower number than what we've had in previous years. And so our kudos to Ms. Trevino and the accounts payable staff for really clearing out as much of the backlog in terms of accounts payable and managing the orders so that we could minimize this number. So I'm grateful to her for the great work she and her staff have done at that point. And it's our recommendation that these be approved. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Does anyone have any questions? No? Thank you. Okay, academic calendar, Dr. Bonner.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Cox, board members, I just wanted to show you a little bit more information on the academic calendar process that took place over the intervening month since last month. As you're aware, the calendar survey went out, I believe it was November 24th, and ran through December 2nd, if I have the dates correct. The options are in your packet. You can see a final tally for that. We did conduct the survey for the community members in Spanish and English. Those final numbers are a cumulative total for both English and Spanish. And you can see the outcome of that exercise. If I may, I would like to address the items that Ms. Mosley brought up, just to assure that the committee was sympathetic to a different option. But really, we ran into some parameter issues with regard to a schedule that started on August 20th, give or take a little bit. A couple of the parameters that we talked about were noted, concluding the fall semester prior to the winter break, which would allow in the early calendar to conclude the year before Memorial Day. If you look at the calendar that would start on or about the 20th of August, you're running into some days problems which provide an imbalance between the two semesters, and that was one of the other parameters under which we were working, is to have a balance of days between the two. And so the committee did discuss that and did look at that and chose to stick with the early being the week of August the 13th, and then the traditional, which is the week of August the 27th, I believe, if I've got the days correct. And I'm happy to answer any further questions as well.
Thank you, Dr. Bonner. Does anyone have any questions? Ms.
Excuse me. Dr. Bonner, I know you said this last month, but I just want it reiterated. There were members of the Fine Arts Department that were part of your committee?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Watson was a member of the committee, as was Mr. Ford.
Any questions? Mr. Miller?
At the risk of appearing hoity, I'd like to highlight that this calendar is not a fine arts or athletic-friendly calendar. The academic benefits of us starting sooner and finishing sooner, while there, if you compare LISD's academic performance to other districts, I would put us up there at the top. This calendar will, though, require that students miss school for certain sports like volleyball and potentially fine arts. And so it's as if, I know it's redundant to some people, but I think they need to understand what we're getting to get out of school early, predominantly, and potentially get done with our semester before Christmas. We are going to suffer the impact, I believe, and it's yet to be measured, by the instructional time that our athletes and our fine arts kids lose, and potentially the impact of competitiveness. While I appreciate that there were senior level people in the administration present, it just doesn't seem consistent with what we hear from campuses. That said, the community voted, and we're going to move forward. But I think this is something that, in fairness to the community, we really need to monitor how it's working for us. If student achievement doesn't go up, then it's not a benefit of student achievement. there's got to be some measures that if we're going to take advantage of this provision under District of Innovation, that we get something for it and we see some measurable result. I think it's worth noting that, again, this is the calendar, this is discussion. It'll go to action next meeting, I guess, right? And it is what it is. 50% of the people voted, so it's not that more people voted against it by voting for the other three, right? More people voted for option B. And so it is the calendar. I share Ms. Mosley's sentiment, but I don't know what we could have done actually to communicate more about the potential impacts of this calendar. And Dr. Bonner, you and your team did communicate that. I think trustees have communicated, and it is what it is.
Sheffield?
So, Dr. Bonner, so you said primarily the reason you didn't use the August 20th start date, which is that middle Monday, was just really so that you could keep the pure semester and then not have the imbalance in days. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Those were a couple of the parameters which were laid out to guide the process. The desire to which the semesters were balanced, and they're not entirely even, but they're within a couple of days of each other in length. And then also, as you noted, the desire to have the semesters end at winter break and then before Memorial Day.
So is there, how far off balance would they be, though, in terms of, if you started on the 20th, and I'm just curious, because I'm
glad you asked. I did a little bit of back-of-the-envelope counting. If you move the days around, you're looking at from calendar B, which would be the midweek, you'd move 3 days. So you'd be 83 days in the first semester and 93 days in the second semester. So it's in my estimation, a significant difference in days.
Okay, all right. But to the point of students miss now. I mean, is that not an accurate statement that we have students in fine arts and athletics that whether we start at a traditional calendar or whether we start early, we're going to have students missing school for fine arts and athletics?
Well, I think the concern that was expressed to me by parents and a handful of calls in the intervening months since we last discussed this was the timeline for volleyball, when most of their tournaments are going on, would be before school in our calendar this year, would now be the first couple of weeks of school, if I understand that process correctly.
Okay. So then, hold on, I had one other question and it just flew out of my mind. Okay.
Missing classes?
No. Okay, I don't remember. Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions? I have a question, Dr. Bonner. So I appreciate the committee's work, so thank you very much. But I'm curious, because two of the calendars, it was strictly a in-service day that was a change. So why did we just not offer just two options instead of the four?
I really don't know that I can answer that. I think probably, if I am recalling correctly, there was some discussion about differentiating those days and maybe providing that other option that was discussed, that compromise option. In the interest of getting a balanced semester, and again, the semester breaks at the end of the beginning of the winter break and the end of the year, there really wasn't a desire by the committee to bring that middle one because it wouldn't get us any further down the road on those two parameters that we laid out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it just didn't seem to be much of a variation. So I would prefer, if we're going to offer parents and students an opportunity to choose, that we're truly offering them opportunities. And if we don't have that, then it's just less choices.
We've absolutely discussed that as we move into next year.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Ms. Sheffield.
It's just about UIL, and I know because we're not the only district that is, moving up start dates and considering that. And so I know I've heard that I know that that's a discussion, but that perhaps UIL doesn't meet. I don't know how UIL kind of really works in terms of their decision-making process. But is that something that, do you think that there might be some future flexibility, if not for this coming year, maybe down the road?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ms. Sheffield. UIL is ruled by a group of superintendents that we elect, other superintendents. So, for instance, LISD has a representative in 5A and a representative in 6A, and they're on the council. And so there's no doubt that some of them not only come from school districts that start early, but certainly we'll continue to hear about that. So, the only other thing, it's sort of like school schedules. There's not a great, there's pros and cons to all of it. Certainly it's the same with calendar. We, for a long time, started school early in LISD when we were allowed to have waivers, and so I have no doubt that we'll make it work, whatever the decision is.
Other questions? Thank you, Dr. Bonner. Okay, we'll move into action items. Consider approval to assign architects to spring 2017 wind and hailstorm damage related objects. Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. This is the item we just discussed a moment ago about the hailstorm. You have in this item the list of each campus there. You have Marcus High School, Valley Ridge Elementary School, McAuliffe Elementary, Briar Hill Middle School, DeLay Middle School, Heritage Elementary, Highland Village Elementary, and Lamar Middle School, all listed there. And as you see the dollar totals that are listed there, the biggest dollar amount is related to Marcus High School's roof. That's $9.7 million. And as we looked at this and looked at how do we make a recommendation on how to divide this work up among the two qualified architect firms that the board has appointed, we realized that Stantec has just completed or did the design work on roofing work that was just completed not too long ago at Marcus High School. They also were the design firm that did the renovation at Highland Village Elementary School that's just been completed a year or so. So it made sense to recommend assigning those two campuses to Stantec simply because they already have a lot of the foundation to do that work. And then because that's such a large proportion of the work, it seems to make sense to recommend Huckabee just do the remainder of the campuses. And so that is our recommendation, that Stantec be assigned to Marcus High School and Highland Village Elementary School, and the Huckabee firm be assigned to the remainder of the projects. And certainly we'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have on that.
And this was presented on the Facilities Committee, correct?
That is correct.
Would anyone from the Facilities Committee like to make a comment? Does anyone have?
Sorry, it was just highlight, because it was brought up, why do we have to use an architect? If you want to just mention, Mr. Ball, why we have to use an architect and an engineer for a roof.
State law requires it because it is a part of the structural component of the building that projects of this magnitude would have to have an architect involved by statute.
Yes, thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. I didn't think of this earlier, so sorry. The Colony also experienced some damage to some of their outlying buildings. They're not listed on our lists. So what happened to the Colony's damage during the same time frame?
I don't know the answer to that. I'd have to defer to Mr. Hughes on that.
Sorry, I should have thought about this earlier, but I didn't.
The Colony High School, I'm not sure they had damage from that exact storm. We did have a storm prior to that. It was around that same time where we did have some units that were blown over. It wasn't anything that amounted to the deductible of $250,000. So we were able to repair that, of course, in-house using our own contractors.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Ball. Would someone like to make a motion?
I will. I move to approve Huckabee and Stantec architect firms for the spring 2017 wind and hailstorm damage related to projects and the expenditures associated with their design fees as presented by administration.
It's a motion by Ms. Sheffield, a second by Ms. Timish. All in favor? 7-0, motion carries. Consider approval of the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2017. Mr. Ball?
Thank you, Ms. Cox. As Ms. Selena Miller makes her way to the microphone, Robert, she's going to need the remote control for the PowerPoint. Ms. Miller represents the firm of Whitley Penn. They are the firm that the board has appointed to do our annual audit, and they've done a great job. I appreciate the work that Selena and her staff have done with Ms. Trevino and her staff to produce the report that you'll hear about tonight. So with that said, I'll turn the microphone over to Ms. Miller.
Well, good evening, President Cox, members of the board, and Dr. Rogers. Thank you for having me here today to present the results of the 2017 audit. I believe a little over a week ago, we met with the Finance Committee to go over the results of the audit. So I'd like to take the full board through the similar or same presentation. You know, our audit process, even though I'll summarize it here in 10 minutes, is pretty intense. We start in the early summer months, beginning with our risk assessment test of controls, identify the controls not only over your financial statements, but also over your federal awards. After we identify those controls, we test those controls and also test for compliance with state law and federal law. After the district closed its books, we came back in mid-October to do the final portion of our audit by corroborating, verifying, confirming those balances that appear on your balance sheet, as well as looking at trends and doing substantive analytical work as well. We did a lot of test work, and as much as we try to not be disruptive, it's to no avail. But we, again, kudos to your management for putting up with us throughout this process. We do all of that so that we can issue an opinion on the financial statements, and as I said earlier, also over your federal programs. So as you move from green to red, yeah, you could see this better on the red on this screen here. But the green is the best type of opinion you can receive. It's a clean opinion, an unmodified opinion. As you move from yellow to red, it worsens. A modified opinion is due to a scope limitation or a departure from generally accepted accounting principles. And then the worst type of opinion is not an opinion, it's a disclaimer where we cannot provide any assurance. But Lewisville ISD has earned an unmodified opinion. These are your financial statements. It is management's financial statements. All the data comes from them throughout the year. We simply audit it. So again, kudos to your management. Financial reporting, again, we've issued an unmodified opinion, but we're also, because we tested internal controls, we also looked at state compliance. We're required to report on any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses or non-compliance matters. I'm pleased to report that we had none for fiscal year 2017. Because the district received $30.4 million, actually the threshold is $750,000, you're required to undergo what's called a federal single audit. And every year we go through the risk assessment and select various federal programs. This year we selected the special education cluster, which is your IDEA B formula and preschool, and Title II Part A, teacher, principal, and training. Those were the two federal programs that we issued an opinion over. Again, that's an unmodified opinion. And again, no significant deficiencies, material weakness, or noncompliance with federal statute. We look at your general fund revenues, you'll see that they totaled $450.3 million, and that's an increase of $8.9 million from last year. Property taxes did increase by $35.7 million. There was no change to the tax rate for maintenance and operations. It remained at $1.04. However, you did see increases in the values of your property. State aid decreased by $28.5 million, and as your values begin to increase the way the state formula works, your state aid begins to decline as those property values increase. Therefore, your state aid, you will see a decline in that, and you saw that this year. Your federal revenue increased by $200,000, and so you'll see that property taxes is the primary revenue within the district at 76%, with state aid only at 15%. So this just illustrates where you were. Property values in 2012 is the black line, and then the red line is state aid. And you'll see that in between 15 and 16, those changed directions as your property values began to increase, which is out of your control. The state aid began to decrease. And again, it's an effect of the state aid formula that's controlled at the state. The general fund expenditures totaled $438 million, with the primarily expenditures in instruction and related services at 64%, or $281.1 million. You have several pieces of the pie, but the second largest is the red at 9%, at instructional and school leadership at $39.1 million. You also had guidance, counseling, and evaluation services at $19.3 million, or 5%. Facilities maintenance and operations was at 9%, or $37.9 million, and the majority of that is your utilities. Your utilities will be included in that. So we'll see that also in this next chart here as well, that payroll, out of the $438 million, $367.3 million went to payroll cost. Contracted services were $52.2 million, and just the way the state requires us to account for that, your utilities are accounted for in that $52.2 million. Supplies were $11 million, operating cost and other were $6.3, and capital outlay was less than $1 million. If we look at your general fund balance and compare that to the budget, we'll see that the revenues were less than the budgeted amount by a little less than $1 million. Actual expenditures, as we noted before, were $438 million, but they were under budget by $25.4 million. You did add $10.7 million to fund balance, and that's after the $1.7 million transfer out to the food service program. Ending fund balance was $169.3 million. And you have two categories that have some flexibility. The first two categories is non-spendable and restricted. You have no flexibility to move those monies around. But these two categories you are allowed at the board level, and of course unassigned is available for appropriations. So this year you passed a resolution to commit 90 days or 3 months of your fund balance, which totaled $108 million for unforeseen events. Unassigned fund balance was 48 days or $59.3 million. Debt service is set up to make the principal and interest payments for the long-term debt that exists at Lewisville ISD. Actual revenues, it's all property taxes. There's a small portion of revenue that's coming from the state for the existing debt allotment, which totaled $2.5 million. Your revenues were more than budgeted by the $2.5 million. Property taxes were $1.7 million more than the budgeted amount, and just remembering that this is a separate tax rate from the M&O that we saw earlier, and that tax rate did actually decrease from last year from 43 cents to about 38 cents this year. So again, it was just a result of the property tax values that created that additional property tax revenue. Expenditures were under budget by $2.5 million, but you did add $13.9 million to fund balance. If you look at fund balance in comparison to your principal and interest payments for the year, that equates to 137 days, and that allows you to pay off future debt or do other reduce the tax rate further if the board wishes to do so. Food service fund, actual revenues totaled $22.6 million and were $1.1 million less than budgeted. $12.3 million comes from federal revenue, and that's for the free and reduced meals that are reimbursed by the federal government, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. $10.1 million is related to locally generated revenue. Expenditures were under budget by $3.1 million. You did add $1.9 million, but again, there was that $1.7 million transfer from the general fund into the food service fund. So without it, you would have added about $200,000 to the the fund balance. Ending fund balance was $4.4 million, and as we discussed in the Finance Committee, it's trending the right direction as you're building up that fund balance. But this fund is very different from the general fund, where the Texas Department of Agriculture caps you at 3 months, so you can't really build up that fund balance. So that's a little bit different from your other funds. That is all I have for you tonight. If you have any questions for me, I know you've had our draft a few days, so if there's any questions that I could address, I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. And this did come out of the Facilities Committee, which I do serve on. So my comment would just be what was the most disheartening, I think, for me is to see is we're in an affluent area and we continue to provide services for our students, but yet we continue to decline from the state.
Right.
So that was very disheartening
Right.
for me. But anyone else from the Facility Committee want to comment, or Finance Committee? I'm sorry. No? Ms. Sells?
I think just the same sentiment was that state aid that we continue to receive a decrease of, and there to be no accountability in Austin for that. And I think public education matters. It's a matter of public good. And once again, I will refer back to what our district states, that we all means all. And I just thank our staff for providing. This is a lot of work. So thank you, guys.
Are there any questions? Ms. Prosnick?
Thank you for the presentation. I actually have a question about the report.
Sure.
What was the process in choosing special ed and the Title II for the federal? Did you choose that? Did we choose that?
No, that is auditor determined. So there's two type of federal programs that will we divide your schedule of expenditures of federal awards. That's on page 139. It starts on page 139, and it totaled $30.4 million. And so we divide your programs between Type A and Type B programs. Type A programs are going to be anything 3% higher than the total CFA. So it was about, the Type A programs are anything over $912 million, and those are required to be audited every third year. So we have to rotate those. Those must be audited, the large programs. That's the Type A. The Type B programs are there to replace in the year that a large program is not audited and we consider it low risk. There's no change in personnel, no change in information systems, no findings from outside parties. Then we can consider it low risk. And those Type B programs, those small programs, anything over 187,500 and in between that 912,000, those are your Type Bs, and those will replace the low risk program. So we determine that, and we'll rotate that. So the big three is Title I, Idea B, Child Nutrition. Those you'll see always, and then we'll pick up the smaller ones every year.
Any other questions? Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I would just add, well, I think we all are disappointed on the state's contribution to keep it within the context of this report, that the WADA and the ADA enrollment are factors in the revenue that we receive. And it's incumbent upon us to manage those numbers. It's not a surprise that the state's percentage is going down. The money we get from the state in our 104 tax levy is considered constitutional according to the Supreme Court. So we're getting our fair share as it relates to the legislature doing their job. The lobbying needs to be done around two things. One is that the system is fair, that we take all students and school choice takes all students. The second is that we are in a system where the allocation of funds, whether it's instructional minutes or the costs associated with this, have to be at parity, and they're not in the current system today. So I don't get too nervous about that the state's contribution is going down. It's been going down. It's the formula that's deemed constitutional. We have to work on the other part of the formula that we can control, which is, well, we could lower the tax levy, which we're not going to, but that we get our enrollment up. That's our big focus. We talked about it at our budget workshop. For those who weren't there, that's the area that we can really make an impact and improve our revenue position, because the fact is that if enrollment goes down, our expense base has to go down. We don't need as many teachers. We don't need as many facilities. Therefore, enrollment is king. And so that needs to be our focus while we continue to needle away at the legislature. But that's going to take, another decade or so, in my opinion.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Mill. Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2017, as presented by administration.
Motion by Ms. Sells, second by Ms. Timish. All in favor? 7-0, motion carries. Consider approval of RFQ 2517 construction manager at risk for 2017 bond construction projects and other projects on an as-needed basis. Step 2 for year 1 bond projects. Assign construction manager at risk, firms construction projects. Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. This item is step 2 of the RFQ that you've referred to in the agenda. And as you know, the board at the previous meeting approved 6 firms as qualified to do work in the district on the projects that you mentioned. By statute, then step 2 of this process, we're allowed to solicit from a minimum of 3, but no more than 5 of those pre-qualified firms, and that's per Section 2269 of the Government Code, puts that parameter around this process. And so, with that said, what we had to do is determine which firms were invited to provide a proposal on the projects that you see listed there in those bullets under the administrative consideration. And so that was a bit of a decision process in terms of looking at which firms we felt, based on our knowledge of the firms and our construction team and our architect teams, which firms had potential aptitude for those particular projects. And so we made the selection of who would be invited to propose. And so if you look at page 3 of that agenda item, it's more in a table type format, and it has, if you look at each project, there's a blank line. And that blank line is the firm that was not invited to bid on that particular project, because by statute, we could not solicit from more than 5 firms. So every one of those projects has a blank line in it. That's the firm that didn't receive an invitation for that project. So that said, we chose not to go with the minimum of 3, but we wanted to spread the net as widely as we could and invite 5 firms to participate in each of these projects. And so the other parameter that we placed on it was in the request for proposals, we stated that the Career Center project and the new College Street Elementary on Mill Street would not be awarded to the same firm, and that decision was made simply to mitigate the concentration of risk associated with assigning such a large amount of work to one firm. So the 2 limitations on this were no more than 5 firms could be solicited, and then we placed the limitation to not appoint the 2 new jobs to the same firm. So with that said, we sent the solicitation out. We received the quotes back from the 5 firms on each respective project. And then what you see is the result of the work of a committee comprised of, there actually were 6 degreed architects in the room participating in this evaluation process, to look at all the responses we got from the firms. And the recommendations for the firm and the respective project are shaded in green on that chart that you see on the 3rd page of this item. And so, for example, the Career Center West and the restroom renovations, the recommendation is to assign that to North Star. And then the new College Street on Mill Street and some wall finishes, the recommendation is to assign that to Balfour Beatty. And so I won't go through and read all those unless you want me to, but that's the way this table is set up, is that the firm is shaded green and their proposal amount is shaded green on each of those respective projects. And so there are, out beside the three of those, there's a little footnote. There's a 1 and a 2 and a 3 footnote. And in those three instances, the low proposal is not the proposal that's being recommended. And so we felt like we needed to provide some explanation of why the lowest cost is not recommended there. And as we said earlier, before we ever sent the RFQ out, we stated in the RFQ solicitation that the two new construction jobs would not be assigned to the same firm. And so the firm of Balfour Beatty was the low cost on both those new construction jobs. And so to be consistent with the solicitation that we had sent out, and we also believe it's best value to the district because it does mitigate that concentration of risk in putting all that work with one firm. And the cost of that is about $43,000, $42,733 is you might view that as the insurance cost to mitigate that risk of concentration of so much work in one firm. And so that's the reason that in those two jobs, the lowest proposal was not recommended. So again, that committee comprised of 6 degreed architects, myself and Mark Grossman from our purchasing department, discussed all the pros and cons and felt like North Star had experience in doing career centers, and both of these firms are great firms, by the way, and so there's no reason for us to be concerned about either. We could have assigned them to either firm. We just felt like the group, those 6 degreed architects in the firm, felt like that was the best choice, because to be faithful to our solicitation, we couldn't assign both to the same firm. And so then it became an issue. That was really the first decision we felt like had to be made. And then as we worked through the rest of the projects, you see basically we took the low proposal from every other job except for 2, and those are the Creekside Elementary job and the Old Settlers Elementary job. And there really were, in addition to the concentration of risk mitigation that we talked about on the first item, there really were 4 things that were considered as we looked at how could we allocate these jobs among the respondent firms. And those were the strengths of the teams that they proposed. We asked them to, in this stage of the process, to give us the specific names of the people that they would assign to these respective projects. And those 6 architects that were in the room know these people personally, work with them every day, and so they were aware of the strengths of the various teams that were proposed. So that was a consideration. The workload capacities of the firms was considered, and the sub pool was considered. In other words, some of these firms use the same subs, and so by diversifying the firms, we're also diversifying the sub pool. And then lastly, we wanted to consider, we did this process to identify 6 firms that we would, and the board now has said these firms are qualified to do business. We wanted to give as many of them work in this process as we could, recognizing this is simply year 1 of the 2017 bond program. We'll be doing this cycle over and over again, and we want to keep as many of these qualified firms interested in continuing to work with the district as is possible. And one of the things that we considered in this too that's not stated here is that we have this $15 million in roofing work that you've seen now on two different agenda items tonight. That work will be coming up, and so there are 2 firms that are not being recommended tonight for work, but there is this upcoming process that will result in a recommendation to the board to award the $15 million in roofing to some firms. And so those two firms will have, in the very near future, an opportunity to participate in that process also. So with all those considerations in play in this thing, you see the green highlighted firms and in their respective amount are recommended for each of these projects. And certainly we have Mr. Hughes, Mr. Randy and Jason, I'm sorry, are here tonight. I do know your last name, Randy, but they would be available to answer any questions the board might have as well. So that said, Ms. Cox, we'd be happy to address questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Does anyone have any questions? Ms. Prosnick?
When we were talking about the refreshes at Old Settlers and Creekside, did we take into account that we could have a much shorter time frame to do those if we vote for if the board passes the earlier calendar?
That's a great question, and I appreciate that question, Ms. Prosnick. Actually, one of the things that we're considering, and we really can't get into how that will work until we get the firms involved. And one of the other things, there were a lot of intangibles discussed in that meeting where all these firms were considered. But one of the things that we're considering is not putting the district in a spot where we're having to compress so much work into such a short period of time, and really trying to look at ways that we can maybe do the work over 2 summers, but at the same time only disturb the teachers' classrooms once. And we feel like getting, I think what we have is we have each of the 20-year projects assigned to a different firm. And so part of our thinking there is that the more minds we can have looking at what our options are there, the better we'll be. And so the shorter summer really is one more reason to pursue that line of thinking, and we feel like with more firms involved, we'll have a lot more experience and a more diverse pool of ideas from which to draw as we look at how that would play out.
And Ms. Prosnick, I will tell you that we've had those discussions I have with principals, all groups of principals, just to sort of dipstick their input on that, and whether or not they'd be okay, for instance, with us renovating restrooms during the year, one at a time, and those types of things. So we have had those discussions, and ultimately our main consideration is we don't want to mess with teachers, moving them more than one time. So,
any other questions? Mr. Miller?
Mr. Ball, I'm curious, in this situation where we had in each item, we didn't have every bidder bid, but when Jackson no bid, did we not go back to the other bidder and include them?
Mr. Miller, that's a great question. It's not a matter of no bidding. It's they were not invited to bid, and that's by that statute 2269 in the government code requires a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 5. So we were not allowed by statute to invite all 6 firms to participate. So, pardon me, in those first 2, the 2 new construction, we did not invite Jackson to bid on those. And that had to do with the size of the firms in that particular case.
I think he's talking about the Marcus High School projects and stage curtains where it lists no bid.
Marcus High School, Jackson, no bid. So it would make sense to go back and allow Belfort to bid to see if they might offer a competitive bid.
We did not do that, Mr. Miller.
Second item I'd like to raise, it's no question that I have somewhat a protest of the CMR process, but I don't believe that we have agreement that the CMR process for the first-year bond packages includes the ability for those to be the CMRs that would do construction work on the HVAC and the remediation. It would seem to me that's a different process than to leverage the CMR process for the $202 million. I mean, in other words, it was never intended to be, and I think we discussed it, if you're not in this 6, you're not going to get business for us for a long time. That there would be other mechanisms that people could bid on. And it seems to me that the remediation work for the act of God, if you will, is an opportunity to see if, in fact, do some checks and balances on the rates that we're getting here.
Mr. Miller, the action that the board took is stated on the agenda item here. It's the construction manager at risk services for 2017 bond construction projects and other projects on an as-needed basis. So I think it was the intent, as I understand it, to identify the 6 firms as a result of that request for qualifications process as firms that would work on these construction projects related to the bond projects and other projects on an as-needed basis. One of the things that we've tried to get away from, and we saw the results of that over the last couple of years, is having to do a separate solicitation process for the construction contractors on each job. And what we found was that in some cases there wasn't a lot of interest in firms proposing on our work. And one of the goals of this process, and it is a new process, but one of the goals is to stimulate some long-term interest in firms proposing, and there is competition for this work because there are at least 5 firms bidding on each job that we invite proposals on. And so we do feel like it's a good process for the district, and certainly not meant to exclude anyone, but it is meant to create a venue where we have more firms who are interested in bidding on our projects as we move forward, which creates a more competitive environment for us long term, we believe.
I appreciate that perspective. Clearly, I remember the conversation a little bit differently, and in fact is a process now for those projects intended to exclude companies. We had a conversation that said that there would be other opportunities where people could compete for that business. It sounds like that is not staff's recommendation. I'd just like to make it noted that I recall it being a little bit different.
Are there any other questions? Someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the recommended construction manager at risk selections for the year 1 bond projects and the associated pre-construction and management fee expenditures as presented by administration. Construction manager at risk selections are Balfour Beatty Construction, Jackson Construction, North Star Builders Group, and Pogue Construction.
Motion by Ms. Sheffield. Do we have a second? Ms. Hassett. All in favor? Okay, that's Ms. Sheffield, Ms. Sells, Ms. Cox, Ms. Timish, Ms. Hassett, Ms. Prosnick. Any opposed? Mr. Miller. So that's 6-0. Motion carries. Okay, consider adoption of a resolution casting the votes of Lewisville Independent School District for candidates to the Board of Directors of the Denton Central Appraisal District. Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. This is an item that the Finance Committee met and discussed and had fairly extensive discussions about this. In your materials, you see the number of votes that are allocated to Lewisville ISD, and that number is 1,381 votes out of a total of 5,000 for all of the taxing jurisdictions in Denton County. And the Finance Committee really helped us to not make a recommendation tonight from the administration, but to allow the Finance Committee to strategically look at, in communication with how other districts are casting their votes, for the Finance Committee to make a recommendation tonight about how to allocate our votes. The thinking is that some of these candidates may be elected regardless of what LISD does, and then I think the other part of the thinking was to cast our votes in a manner that strategically ensures that candidates who support public education are seated on the board based on the votes that we have. So Ms. Timish has kind of led the charge on that. So if you have a recommendation, Ms. Timmons, that'd be great.
I do. Our finance committee met and we were in agreement with, we had presented names 3 months ago with, and we recommended from LISD to the Denton Central Appraisal District the names of Roy Atwood, Mike Hassett, Charles Stafford, that is a typo in ours, S an ORD on the end, and David Terry. And we recommended, based on the number of votes, that our recommendation would be for Roy Atwood, 591 votes, for Mike Hassett, 590 votes, for Charles Stafford, 100 votes, and for David Terry, 100 votes, for a total of 1,381 votes.
Thank you, Mr. Timish. Any questions? Okay, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'd have
Oh, you have a question, Mr. Miller? Sorry.
Yeah, I understand the background on this from the minutes available to us. I'm just going to ask respectfully, given the political environment that's out there, that Mr. Stafford will win hands down. This is an environment now where people don't like a person who sits on both sides of the equation, determining the values of the property as well as the levy. And given what's coming, and because Mr. Stafford doesn't need our votes, and he's a good man and want to understand it, I would respectfully ask that we exclude him, distribute those votes out there, unless somebody can give a good reason as to why a person should have be on a committee where they vote for the levy and vote against the base. It just has he's not doing anything wrong. It doesn't make it clean. This is a year with the press that it needs to be clean. And I'd ask for us to reconsider that so that we can make it just a very pure thing. He will get elected through his ISD, and we just make this about David and Ray and Mike.
We would also, that same would have to be said about Mr. Terry, who's on the Colony City Council.
So what is it about these candidates that need our votes that we would, are we doing, you see, it's one thing to do them a favor. Hey, good job. We're patting them on the back. We want to be a partner. They're going to make it anyway, versus doing what's good for LISD. And part of what's doing good for LISD right now is not drawing people in. Not drawing people in that LISD advocated two people that can affect the tax rate on both sides. Let's just make it so that Ray and Mike get 691 and 690 votes respectively. LISD stays out of the debate. Let the debate play out as it may.
We did talk about, because there's so many fewer candidates, I mean, I don't feel comfortable saying that there's a shoo-in or somebody's going to necessarily win, because the numbers are very significantly different this time, because really we have almost half. And we felt like we recommended their names. When we went through and vetted everyone, I and our committee felt like that these are people that are making decisions. And Mr. Stafford and David Terry have served on the committee, and I feel like they're doing a very good job. So this is the first that we're hearing from this last weekend from our notes. So my recommendation would be to stay with the current votes.
Well, I voiced it 2 meetings ago, but I think it still applies. If you take 100 votes to Mike and 100 votes to Ray, it's not going to change the material outcome for the entire committee. The question is, what are we doing in giving votes to these two when we could say in LISD we are not going to participate in the current climate that says people who can levy the tax can also be a part of establishing the value. Because we know that's out there, wouldn't it be in our best interest to just we could throw 200 votes to Connie Smith, or we could throw 100 to Mike and 100 to Ray, and then we stay out. LISD stays off the radar. I mean, what is it Ray and Charles and David, they're good guys. They're going to get on anyway. So why not stay out of the fray and just say, hey, we're going to focus on LISD. We're not going to send a message that we're putting people on there that can vote for the levy and vote for the property tax. I mean, I think we get the same thing either way.
I don't think there's a set guarantee, Mr. Miller. Nobody's never guaranteed to be on a committee, and I totally appreciate what you're saying. But the committee did recommend, and we did vote last month on recommendations. And I think from an LISD standpoint, we would want candidates that are unbiased and represent that committee well.
Yeah, I read the vote. Well, that vote was a vote that I made the motion that those were the people to be included for consideration. And certainly I get that. What I'm saying is, you opened up with an analysis was done. In that analysis, will Mr. Stanford and Mr. Terry lose without our 100 votes? We know the answer. They won't. And so we have a higher likelihood of confirming our guys, and it's just a fundamental question. Is it really truth in taxation when you have a person that can vote here on the levy and here on the property taxes? That's all given this year and what's going on. That's what we're trying to avoid, in my opinion.
Ms. Hassett.
It really is only one group that has brought up the issue, and it's really been mainly posted on their blog. So it's not really an issue brought up by the society in general. It's just one group in general who's brought it up once. So.
Christy, but even in that, what is it in it for us to vote for these two guys? They're going to win. We know that. It's worth staying out of the we do know that at 100 votes, you guys said you analyzed it based on the current vote card, or whoever the committee was. All I'm suggesting is let's let LISD be clean, no matter who it is. And Empower Texas is going to have a bigger voice in this election, including in our municipal election. It would seem to me that it's in our best interest to say, hey, listen, we got two guys for sure that we're going to get. These other two guys are probably going to get it. Go for the ones that we know we can get in. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Ms. Timish, would you like to make a motion?
I move that we, the LASD Board of Trustees, cast our 1,381 votes for the Denton Central Appraisal District candidates in this manner: Roy Atwood, 591; Mike Hassett, 590; Charles Stafford, 100; David Terry for 100.
Motion by Ms. Timish. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Sheffield.
Ms. Cox, I'd like to raise a point of order. I'd like to provide an amendment to this amendment that removes the approval of Charles Stafford and David Terry from the roll.
Mr. Crownover, can we do that? Okay, vote on the amendment first. Okay, do we have a second on the amendment? Okay, hearing none, motion dies. We have a motion now on the floor for Ms. Timish and a second for Ms. Sheffield for the vote submitted earlier. All in favor? The vote by Ms. Prosnick, Ms. Hassett, Ms. Timish, Ms. Cox, Ms. Sells, Ms. Sheffield. All opposed? It's Mr. Miller. 6-0. Motion carries. 6-1. Sorry, Tracy. Okay, consider adoption of a resolution casting the votes of the Lewisville Independent School District for candidates to the Board of Directors of Tarrant Appraisal District. Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. This is the very similar issue on a much smaller scale. LISD has 3 votes, I believe, in Tarrant County, and similar process for that.
Ms. Timish, did you want to make a recommendation?
I had one from another school district that had voted for Mark Wood. I personally don't know these candidates. I've looked at some of the information, but I was going to suggest 3 votes for Mark Wood.
Did we receive a letter from somebody else? Was she considered?
Yes, June Shrewsbury.
That was the same, they were recommending him?
No, a recommendation for her, for June Shrewsbury.
Mr. Miller, we received a letter from Ms. Shrewsbury. That's what you're referring to.
Yes. I'm sorry. Is that the name we're recommending? We're recommending someone else.
Ms. Timish has said Mark Wood.
Yes. So we received a letter from someone, and then Mark Wood. Is there a reason why, which one or the other?
Based on a recommendation from another district that had that has more of is more impacted and knows these candidates.
Who was that district, please?
HEB ISD.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller, there's a question. Oh, does someone want to make a motion?
I would like that we, the LASD Board of Trustees, cast our 3 votes for the Tarrant County Appraisal District candidate, 3 votes for Mark Wood.
The motion by Ms. Timish. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Prosnick. All in favor? Okay, 7-0, motion carries. Consider approval of policy EIC local class rank. Dr. Rapp.
Dr. Coburn's actually going to speak to this one, so I'll let him take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rapp. Thank you, Mrs. Cox. Members of the board, we are excited to bring forward to you language for policy EIC local for consideration for approval. This is a continuation of the process from last month's discussion. The language written in EIC local would begin an opt-in, opt-out with the class of 2019. That would be the current junior class. We would continue to refine our approach on how best to meet the needs of those students and certainly provide a parent ed and student ed process as we move forward beyond the class of 19, but this would be an implementation beginning with a form-based process for the class of 2019. A couple of points of clarification I'd like to make in case we have any students out there. I had a couple that stopped me after last month. Every student would still receive a class rank, and the process for determining class rank does not change. This is only about the reporting of class rank outside the legislatively required top 10% for our students on their transcripts. Also included in the policy EIC language is a timeline for the reporting for the revealing of a class rank for students. It would begin at the end of the second 9 weeks of the sophomore year. It include the fourth 9 weeks of the sophomore year and every 9 weeks after that in their junior and senior year at the conclusion of those grading periods, and then the time, obviously, to make sure that all of that is final and accurate before sending it out to the students. This was brought to the Curriculum and Programs Committee, and I'd happily kick it over to any of you.
Curriculum, but anyone want to make comments?
Yes, I appreciate staff listening to the board last month and in our desire for this to move forward quicker, and I appreciate them coming up with a plan and a timeline. I'm excited for this to go forward. I don't think that's a secret to anybody. I will share a very quick story. I was speaking to a counselor at one of our high schools, and I was just asking them what they thought about this because they're on the front lines of this. And one of them was telling me about a college in the state of Texas, and it's not UT, and it's not one of the big universities, but it's a university a lot of our students go to. And if you are in the third quartile, they kick you out. You're not accepted. Even if, as she was telling me, that we have students in the third quartile with a 3.6 GPA who meet all of the other requirements through ACT, through SAT, through rigor of classes that they've taken. And what this would do is that they would be accepted by just not putting a rank on their transcript. And I'm excited to give those kinds of opportunities to our students because I think they are more than a rank that, let's be honest, we impose on them with our system. That is not necessarily an apples to apples when you compare it to other districts. So that's my little speech. I'm very happy for this. Ta-da.
Anyone else? Chef.
Well, I appreciate the district making accommodations for the voices of the trustees. I am not in support of it. I guess I wasn't one of those voices that was necessarily looking for a different plan. Primarily because we've talked a lot about systems, we've talked a lot about being thoughtful in our approaches to implementation and making sure that we have all of our bases covered and that we don't jump into something that we're not quite ready for. And so in saying all those things, I feel like the what I guess we would call the trustee plan is doing exactly that. And so I don't support it for that reason. I think it's not wise for us necessarily to kind of discount the comments of counselors and principals and administration in this decision. Although I understand it, I just don't. I don't support it. And so I support this. I support the Spring Branch model. I support where we were going with the conversation we had at our workshop. But I don't support kind of, again, what I would just consider a trustee plan. And so that's just my 2 cents. So when I don't support it tonight, you'll know that it's not because I don't support what the district was wanting to do or not supporting the opt-in, because I think that's a great idea. I don't like the jumping in just because it I don't know, makes us feel good. So
Miller?
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, Ms. Sheffield, and I think that since John Dewey was evoked this evening, I think he would be ecstatic that we're doing this. That we've talked about graduate profiles and things that take a look at kids and nurturing kids and helping them grow. And I get that there's an administrative aspect to this. But we've been talking about this for a long time. The requirement to have this discussion with counselors is not new. And I'll tell you what the side effect is for me. The side effect is for me, while wanting to move forward vigorously, is the things around this that are being exposed. And that is in the cases that, right, wrong, or indifferent, Dr. Rogers, so this is not a criticism. I don't know where it is, where every kid is not getting time with a counselor. I've been befuddled that that's the case. Because since I've been a trustee, I know I've said, where do you need money? Where do you need money? House Bill 5 put a lot back on the counselors. We weren't asked for more money. The 85th legislature, the legislature we just got out of, put some more on us and some rationalization for counselors around some things in some of the new legislations. And so I would assume that there's some time and sequence, time and motion studies always being done with our counselors. We've offered to put more counselors in. I respect the fact that maybe mid-year is the wrong time of the year. But the fact is, one of the key positions to take a look at little Susie or little Johnny and whether they should be going to college, career, or military readiness, using the new acronym, is at their freshman year. And because we live in a district where mommies and daddies are busy, that's where it needs to happen if we care about every kid. And so this is our chance to put these things in front of kids. If we do a Spring Branch model, well, I get there's some methodical nature to it. We rolled out a bus schedule with the board not even being known about it, and affected 18,000 kids, and it happened in less than 2 months. We have made decisions on this board to increase significant amounts of monies and spend in an hour. This can be done. And are we going to get some counselors or parents to call? Yep. And those are the ones that we should answer post haste if the district can come up with a communication plan. What I heard is a form, Dr. A form rollout. What does that mean?
Sure. Initially, the plan would be to have a form-based approach where it is more student-driven about opting in and opting out. We are already in the process of working on a communication piece for that. In fact, a lot of that is really ready to roll out. There is a parent education and student education piece that is involved there. The form-based approach allows a little bit of a soft rollout where nothing changes for a student unless they choose with the class of 19 to initiate a change.
Okay, so I get it, and maybe there's some other techniques as you all consider this, or the committee or whatever. But given that we're to be at 100% e-portfolio, maybe any teacher, there's a question that IT puts out there. It's a notification in Skyward or on the graduate or the e-portfolio, it addresses it, it answers it, it forces it into it. There are different vehicles for us to get that communication out here. I'm excited we're moving forward, but just know for me, this spins up some other things that I think we need to do really, really well. And to reiterate our workshop the other night, and if anybody thinks this grandstanding, I really don't care, is this. We are letting kids pass. Every kid that's not on this that could benefit from it's either suppression, or every kid that could benefit from an e-portfolio, or every kid could benefit from time with a counselor that we miss is gone. It's perishable. It's gone. If it didn't happen today at a middle school, it's gone. Because the teacher don't have, and the staff don't have a bucket of hours they can come use from, right? Time is of the essence. This statement to me is that time is of the essence. I hope nobody in staff is offended by that, because what we're also saying, at least I am, that we'll put some resources behind it. $169 million of money in our fund balance. We rolled over 10. We didn't spend $10 million last year. We saved in some areas. We've got to start asking ourselves, is it worth saving money every year? Or do we spend the money so kids now are affected going next 2 to 3 years? Thank you, Ms. Cox.
Yeah, Mr. Miller, just a couple things I want to clarify. There are no students that want to see the counselor that don't get to see the counselor. I mean, if you see the sign-up sheets for all of our counselors, I promise you every day they're full. Now, there's no doubt that at different schools they utilize those counselors a little different. I did want to also clarify, we did, thanks to the board, add a new counselor at every high school after House Bill 5. So we appreciate that expenditure, and certainly we look to see how we can utilize some additional staff after we give it some time. We did actually, myself, Dr. Rapp, Dr. Coburn, and Ms. Brim actually finalized some communication systems that will go out as soon as tonight to all the high school staff first, and then all high school students and parents tomorrow about whatever the decision is by the board. So we have been working on that. So I just wanted to clarify, I mean, absolutely we want to have a communication plan, and we have been working on that.
Dr. Rogers, I appreciate that. This is not to go point counterpoint, but I would agree with you that we made some of those changes, and that I don't want to send the message that our counselors aren't doing their jobs and they're not meeting with kids. But let's face it, whether it's a business and employees, whether it's a business and products, or whether it's what we do, it's usually not the ones that ask for a meeting that we need to worry about. It's usually not the ones that we have on some discipline list and they're recurrently getting into trouble, right? There's a group of kids, and some of us have had those kids, that never get a meeting. That's what we're talking about, that all kids equally will get some time, at least to be prompted by a counselor to talk about, hey, what's going on? What are you interested in? Let me see your e-portfolio. Let me look at your dossier from the district perspective. Let me see what's happening. What do you mean you don't like going to games because people pick on you, whatever? That's what I'm talking about here. Not that people aren't doing a good job, but that someone has got the time, because we've given it to them from a resource perspective, to say, you know what, you matter. And who are you, by the way? Because that's going on. Not because somebody's doing something wrong, but because we need to put the resource into it. That's all. This is an offer for us to partner with you to put resources at the right time.
No, and I appreciate that, and I guess I need to clarify one last thing, and I don't want to send the message that the only folks that our counselors see are those that sign up. Our counselors know their kids, and certainly they would send for kids on an as-needed basis too, but we are certainly appreciative that the board, and we know that y'all want to serve, certainly want to help us with resources as we determine are necessary.
I was just going to say that in that curriculum meeting, I think that it was very rich, the discussion, and I think the other two members will join with me in our appreciation to staff when they brought something to us and we're like, okay, we need that, and my word was smushed. I mean, my daughter's affected in the class of 20 as her rank, and so I really wanted that opportunity for her, and I think that for our on-campus administration and those counselors, I think that they needed our assurance as a board that we back them. And so from the dais, I just wanted to make that statement that we back them. This is not something that we're just throwing into their laps, but that we want to fully support them and that we appreciate all the work that they do. I wanted to let Mr. Miller know that we understand that things across the district are probably being done in a different manner on different campuses. And so we have asked that everything from those parent meetings to those counselor discussions and dialogues and how those meetings look, that those things be somewhat standardized. And not even somewhat, that they do be standardized, because that child who comes in with that 3.6 and is heartbroken, well, they need that encouragement. But that kid that comes in proud of that 2.8, they need a dialogue also on what your future could hold. And so we have asked, and let me tell you, in that meeting, all of the staff that we met with was very appreciative and very heart and mind open. So just to share that.
Great, thank you.
And Ms. Sells, you make a great point. I do want to be clear that all communication will be from the district. It will all be standardized, with the help of our counselors giving us input and principals, but it will be our message. That way it doesn't get convoluted.
That's it.
I am very grateful to staff for listening. Very, very grateful. I know we have been talking about this for a very long time, and I believe this is a very, very thoughtful approach to solving the issues that we have because of the way that you've actually crafted this communication plan. It's a wonderful idea because it's you have to opt in that first year. So we're not changing anybody who doesn't understand the plan yet. That was a stroke of brilliance, really. And so I think because of that, it's a wonderful thing to implement now, because I have friends who have wanted it to be smushed for their child, like Catherine or Ms. Sells had said, because we do have kids in the system now that understand how it can benefit them next year. And so I greatly appreciate staff listening. So thank you so much for helping the kids that are in the system.
Any other questions? Dr. Coburn, I just have first of all, thank you very much for clarifying that other things aren't going to be changing. I really appreciate that. I just want to reiterate, too, the timeline that the ranking comes out is also not changing. That is going to remain the same.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. The timeline as written in the policy is that an initial class rank would be given to a sophomore at the end of the second 9 weeks. They would then receive a rank again at the end of the fourth 9 weeks of their sophomore year, and then every junior and senior will receive an updated class rank at the end of each 9-week grading period.
Thank you very much. Okay, if there's no further questions, would somebody like to call a motion?
Motion.
Prosnick?
I move to approve the proposed EIC local policy that provides the schedule for release of class rank and the change in reporting options for students beginning with the class of 2019.
It's a motion by Ms. Prosnick. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Hassett. All in favor? The motion by Ms. Prosnick, Ms. Hassett, Ms. Timish, Ms. Cox, Ms. Sells. Mr. Miller, are you?
Yes.
Mr. Miller? Okay. Oh, okay. All right. And any opposed? Ms. Sheffield. That's 6-1. Thank you. Consider adoption of a resolution regarding culture of voting. Ms. Hassett?
The Texas Election Code, Section 276.001 and 276.004 protect an employee's right to vote. Exercising one's right to vote is a civic duty and should be encouraged and promoted. The Board of Trustees of Lewisville ISD seeks to create a culture of voting and encourage all district employees to model responsible citizenship for the benefit of students. Public education is the educated citizenry and the educated citizenry created by public education are the greatest safeguards to the state of Texas and the Constitution of free society. And the institution of public education is best protected by a robust and informative electorate. Resolution. The Board of Trustees of Lewisville ISD supports a culture of voting and seeks to encourage maximum participation by district employees and eligible students in the election process. The Board of Trustees of Lewisville ISD authorizes the administration to take the necessary steps necessary to encourage maximum participation in district employees and eligible students in the election process, which may include several bullets. Let me scroll down just a second. Creating district communications that inform employees and eligible students of the importance of voting. Create district communication that inform employees and eligible students about when and where they may vote. Create district communications to encourage employees to use third-party tools to learn about candidates' positions on public education. Conducting campus and district-wide assemblies that promote the culture of voting. Implement administrative procedures that provide time during the day during early voting period for employees to vote. Implementing administrative procedures that provide time for high school principals to execute their legal requirement to distribute voter registration application to eligible students. Implementing no-cost initiatives to promote voter participation, such as permitting employees with I voted stickers wear Jeans Day. Encouraging district and campus coordinators with volunteer organizations such as PTA or retired educator groups to encourage and facilitate district efforts to create a culture of voting. I think that's the end. Adopted this day.
Thank you, Ms. Hassett. Does anyone have any questions? All right. Are you making a motion, Ms. Hassett?
I move to adopt the resolution regarding the culture of voting as presented.
Okay, that's a motion by Ms. Hassett. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Sells. All in favor? 7-0. Motion carries. Okay, the consent agenda items. Is there any items that need to be pulled? I actually have a few. Ms. Hassett?
1C.
L2 to be what? Which number?
What? Which one?
L1.
There's no. Where's L?
2B.
What? The food truck.
1B. Start over. L1B.
Okay.
Okay. Any others? I would like to pull 2B6 and 2B8. Any others? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda items as recommended by administration?
I'll make the motion. I move the board approve the consent agenda items as recommended by administration with the exception of the following items. L1B, L1C, L26, 2B6, and L2B8.
Got it.
There's a motion by Ms. Sells. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Prosnick. All in favor? 7-0. Motion carries. Mr. Miller, would you like to make a motion? Okay, that's a motion by Mr. Miller. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Sheffield. Mr. Miller, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I had asked this in the last meeting, found a way for us to look at.
Mr. Miller, your mic's not on.
I'm sorry. I had asked about this in the last meeting when we had some, I don't know if it would have changed the vote, but we had some concerns using that out of our M&O funds, which of course we consider as a greater penny than one, right? Like gold. I'm glad that we can do this. I guess what it does for me is tease up a future item that if we could take a look at unencumbered 2008 monies, in other words, what's the working capital that we have that we could or should be using today from that 2008 bond money in the event that it should be encumbered, for other reasons that are not already determined. There may be some logic behind it, but this is to request maybe a future item for us to understand that together. What's available? What are some ideas as to ways we could use that working capital?
Certainly, we can do that, Mr. Miller. That's a great point. I would point out that we still have some fairly major projects to be funded from those funds. The Old Settlers renovation is to be paid for from those funds. The renovation of the bowling center here that's recently been acquired, and there are some technology funding there as well. So in the grand scheme of things, there's the $147,000 is not an amount that would jeopardize any of those, but certainly we need to provide for those projects that we know are ahead of us, that the board has already taken action on, and certainly we'd be pleased to, and we do report that each month in the financial report. There is a report that shows the unencumbered 2008 bond funds.
Yeah, and so I agree, and if we could just have it highlighted, right? I think last time the question was, in fairness to you, even though our bond counsel was here, could we use 2008 bond monies? That really needs to go to the bond counsel and determine whether legally that can be done. We had some monies there that were unencumbered that we could use use $147,000 for the truck, therefore alleviating some questions that members had about using the fund balance. If there's anything else there, though, that we could be thinking about, you might have them penciled in or intently penciled in as encumbered. Either way is fine, just so that we're all on the same page and understand it. And if it's in there, just a note or a highlighted note.
Right now, the projects that the board has already taken action on are listed as encumbered. Well, they're listed as projects, and there are actually two categories. I believe there's a miscellaneous category and there's an unassigned category, which I think both total less than $1 million, as I recall. But certainly we will take a look at that and really be more specific about the available 08 bond money.
The rest of us here.
Thanks, Mr. Miller. I just have a comment on this item as well. I did not support the food truck on the last vote. I do support the board's decision, but I just, in my opinion, I'm not going to be supporting this item as well, because I feel that we have people in the community that can help support the needs of our district, and this being one of them. And we're only purchasing one truck, so I'm not sure how one truck can service all the needs of our district. So I'm not in support of something that we can't service all of our students for LISD, so I'm going to be opposing this motion. Any others? Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Miller, a second by Ms. Sheffield. All in favor? That's Ms. Prosnick, Ms. Hassett, Mr. Miller, and Ms. Sheffield. All opposed? It's Ms. Timish, Ms. Cox, and Ms. Sells. 4-3. Motion carries. Okay. Ms. Hassett, would you like to make a motion?
Move to approve L1C. That works.
We have a second. Hang on. We have a motion by Hassett, a second by Ms. Sheffield. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Is there anybody here that I was just looking at this item, and on the plat on Denton CAD, the plat still looks different than. I'm fearing that we'll see it again later. I don't know how to read Mets and Bounds. I don't know how to read survey equipment. It just looks very different than what. It's
a great point, Ms. Hassett. This actually is a correction of a typographical error on the original deed and legal description, and there hopefully there was an attachment to responses to the board members' questions. It was a 3-page PDF file that had the typo actually highlighted in the original document that was approved. It's Exhibit C of it's actually the meets and bounds, the legal description. In one of the distances, it was 646.05 feet, and it should have been 670.05 feet. And these documents really are the legal documents that control the actual property. What you would see on the appraisal district side is not necessarily official meets and bounds of property. And I think somewhere there'll be a disclaimer on their website that that's not the purpose of those. And certainly as this gets presumably approved tonight by the board and filed of record at the courthouse, at some point that will cycle through and potentially show up on the appraisal district side. But that is not the county clerk is the repository for the official real estate records.
Okay. We have a motion by Ms. Hassett, a second by Ms. Sheffield. All in favor? 7-0, motion carries. Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda item L2B6, which is a renewal of CSP 244716 landscape maintenance and mowing services. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Timish. And yes, I would like to speak to my motion. I just have more of a question. Who would be the one to answer this? Mr. Ball? I know we've had some concerns and questions about mowing time after time, and I know we're on a set schedule, but is that something maybe the district could consider of how we could take care of some of those issues that arise during the summer and the rain months?
Absolutely, and Mr. Hughes and Mr. Fite have worked on that. We do, just as a context, it was in 2010 when the district made the decision to go to the biweekly mowing schedule. That saved somewhere in the neighborhood of $150,000 to $200,000 a year. So over that 8-year period, we've saved somewhere between $1.2 million and $1.6 million just by going to the every other week mowing schedule. That said, it's one of those things where there is a cost associated with that, and the cost is the weeds grow. And so one of the things that has caused us issues, I think, is the contractor has what I call a trim crew or a detail crew that comes and does all the weed eating and the things that can be done with a small mower, and then they have another crew that comes with a wide we call them bat wing mowers, where they fold down the decks and it mows a wide path. And sometimes we've seen a gap in time from when the trim crew shows up from when the crew with the big mowers shows up. And people drive by during that time period, and it leads to the conclusion that, they're not mowing the whole yard. And so Mr. Hughes has worked with the contractor to narrow that time gap, and actually the contractor has agreed to buy some additional equipment so that each crew that goes to the campus will be the crew that finishes the whole job, and before they leave, the job will be done. The other thing we've done is built into the budget the possibility of adding a couple of mow cycles at critical times of the year when we believe the curb appeal is. It's always important, but there may be times where it's more important than normal, like the beginning of school or when the roundup times and those kinds of situations. So we're working on a plan to implement that kind of thing, to really identify those times when the curb appeal is more important than other times, and see if we can't ensure that we get the mowing closer to those times when we know we'll have a lot of people there.
And who will be evaluating that?
Well, that'll be Mr. Hughes's responsibility and his staff. We hope to be able to involve the principals maybe to report to us if they're having an issue that our folks have missed. Certainly we need all the input. We certainly don't want to delegate the job of monitoring the grass milling to the principals, but we can, I think, rely on them to notify us when there's a problem. And Jason has folks that check on that, but knowing that they have the flexibility to order an additional mowing and that those funds are in the budget, I think will give them the flexibility to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I was just going to add, before the budget meeting last week, I did an analysis of anything that was in the register category on the documents for us, and doing a trend line, a month-over-month and year-over-year trend line of our water expenses, you can see some pretty material jumps. And so I would just say that I think that sometimes water, improving the look and feel of a campus, increases the growth, and it causes more work to be done, and that while I know that many of us, myself included, have called them and said, hey, what's going on over here, or campus leaders have called that we take have some appreciation for. This is a very complex ecosystem, which I don't understand. Granda would understand more, but at the end of the day, some water has to be provided, but maybe not too much because it's creating an additional work. If you go back and look at there's some years that we've seen $1 million variance against a $2.9 million. So that's 30% variance in water. Now, there's different things, right? We had some droughts, and depending on where you get the water from, is it predefined MGDs, et cetera. But just know that there's a lot of moving parts just in getting a piece of land mowed or the need to have it mowed. And I think that, maybe it's good in a workshop or something that the guys come help us understand that. What does an additional mow cost? Maybe nothing. But I do agree with you because I think they do this. You've got some crews that are the big crews and some crews that are touch-up, right? The edging crews. They're different people. And there's got to be, not much of a day or two lag in there, if possible.
Ms. Prosnick?
The mowing schedules, one of the things that I've discovered is that principals don't necessarily know when mowing crews are coming, and that creates some communication problems when people have questions because they call the campus, they don't call you and ask about the mowing. Are those schedules, are you going to make those available to principals?
Absolutely, and those mow schedules are sent out before the start of every season. We try to keep those mow schedules on a regular time period so that, over time the principals are aware of when their campus should be mowed. And because their eyes are always at the campus, a lot of times if they're not, then a lot of times we get those calls pretty regularly if they're not mowed. A lot of the times that could be because of rain or it's too wet to mow, but we still get those calls. But those are sent out before the mow season.
Any other questions?
Additional mow, Mr. Miller, is $22,000 to mow one additional time. $22,000 to mow one additional time. The cost of an additional mow, because we're at 535 acres of mowing. Yes, sir. Full mow. Okay.
Are there any other questions? Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Cox, a second by Ms. Timish. All in favor? 7-0, motion carries. Okay, would someone like to make a motion for L2B8? Yes. Okay, I will make a motion to, thank you, Ms. Sheffield. Okay. Ms. Sheffield is making a motion. Do we have a second by Ms. Sells? Okay, I would like to speak to this motion. I wish these items were separated. The Learning A to Z, I am all about literacy and reading and for kids, but I just have some issues with the career cruising. I think as we look at all of our programs and things that we do as we try to save money in the district, this is one of those items. And so my question, Dr. Rapp, is do we have to have this for House Bill 5? Because I can tell you from my own experiences with my children and from children I talk to, no one uses the college readiness. I mean, let me rephrase that, not no one. There are kids that probably do use it. But for the most part, it doesn't give them a true assessment of what your career should be or that. So I'd be curious about that.
Sure. One of the things in talking with Ms. Crow about career cruising for this item was that they are currently looking at a different solution. They've found that career cruising is not necessarily engaging kids in what they need to engage with in terms of determining what are you interested in and how are you interested in it and those kinds of things. So they're currently looking at a different solution for the future.
Mr. Miller.
When does this license expire?
We're good for right now. I mean, that's a purchasing question, but I know that Ms. Crow and them are aware of the timelines, and they're working with purchasing on what timelines would need to be put in place for a different solution.
I mean, this is one where when I talked to parents before and after the workshop last week about Beat Portfolio, first question comes up, you mean career cruising? And I think there's some confusion. And you know, if this were the business world that had that confusion, here's what you do. Shut it off. Then you'll find if you have a problem. And especially if you still own the licenses and you can turn it back on. I would suspect that we don't get a lot of activity on this. And shutting it off temporarily might tell us where the pressure points are.
Ms. Sheffield.
Could you tell, I mean, I don't recall the specific conversation, but I know we've had conversations around this before, and it is more than just the career exploration, to which I agree because my daughter was supposed to be a magician.
How'd that come out?
She is not pursuing that. But I know, can you just kind of give us some of the highlights of some of the other things that it is utilized for?
Yeah, at one time it was really utilized for course request, and that was another big part of the system that career cruising solved. Now Skyward's being used for course request. So primarily what career cruising is being used for at this time are those field exploration items, career interest, things of that nature, since the course request import has moved to Skyward.
And
in all fairness, it did give her other options, not just that.
I think she would have been a good magician. But Mr. Kobeck, either you or I know I've received something in the very recent past about career cruising and the research that's going on about finding a better product. Was that from you?
Yeah, I included it in one of the board updates. Our team is working with counseling on looking at other products.
So I just wanted to reassure the board that we are in the process of finding a replacement.
In terms of Mr. Miller's question, if we turn that off, then we are not meeting state mandate. Is that correct? Does Skyward meet that?
I believe that we still have to have some product like that. And initially, the way we came about career cruising was actually through CTE, which has to have something. So I think that's how it sort of started, and then blossomed, and now we're looking to find a better option.
I think this is one where it would be good for somebody to come to us and tell us what it is. No disrespect, but not what they think it is, right? And I'll give you an example. Dr. Rogers, you remember when Mr. Dietrich told me about a tool. Dr. Rapp, I think you used it in your PhD school, or Dr. Bonner. It helps you see if you're plagiarizing. There's that tool, right? About 2-3 years ago, teachers used that, but a campus leader was allowed to decide to use it. I don't know what the price was, and campus leader shut it off. Well, that's a big time saver for the teacher, and it's a statement to the kids, and universities use them. There are tools like that sometimes I think we don't know what they're being used for or what they are being used for. A campus leader can make sure they shut them off. Maybe, the kids that I'm talking about aren't even in the CTE, and they're using career cruising, so maybe just an inventory of that would be helpful.
Yeah, no doubt. That's called turnitin.com.
Yes, that's it.
So, like I said, we will find a replacement for it.
Do we know how long we've been using career?
I think probably about 10 years, 8 to 10 years. I know I was in either one or two previous roles when we started.
So, yeah, my point to that is I think we need to evaluate programs ongoing to see the effectiveness of the program and not, every 10 years. So I'm not going to be supporting this motion. I hate that because I really like the learning A to Z, but I can't support the career cruising. I don't think it's a useful use of the district's money.
Ms. Cox, is there no motion on the table? There is a motion on the table? Okay. So the motion is that we approve it or don't approve it and then offer a recommendation,
Correct.
recommended approach.
Yes. So we have a motion by Ms. Sheffield, second by Ms. Sells. All in favor? Ms. Prosnick? Oh, not Ms. Sorry, can't see your hand. Ms. Hassett, Ms. Timish, Ms. Sheffield. Opposed? Ms. Prosnick, Ms. Cox, Ms. Sells, Mr. Miller.
Ms. Sheffield, point of order. I'd like to consider an agenda item that takes a look at alternatives for students that are both in career tech and that would qualify in CCMR going forward to see how we replace this tool if necessary. But I was just offering an agenda for the future in the context. And someone else can second that for the future, or we can wait for another time by procedure.
Yes, that's a motion by Mr. Miller. Do we have a second? Oh, can you repeat the motion? I'm sorry, Mr. Miller.
Well, I guess what I'm recommending is a future agenda item. It's not a discuss what we would use in lieu of a career cruiser to address CCMR.
Mr. Colbeck is already doing that with staff right now, trying to come up with solutions. So why don't we wait till
I'm okay with it, but a board request for an agenda actually puts a deadline in place, so Mr. Colbeck will have an opportunity to work towards a deadline.
I just want to add, I believe, Mr. Martin, there's an RFP being developed actually to replace career cruising, and the goal on that is to have a replacement in by the end of the school year. So I think part of the issue on this is to just, I don't know the feasibility of wholesale saying we're not using it. I think we need to continue to use what we have and work towards that replacement so that we can do, the data integration, get the right data in that system to make it usable.
Well, we just voted against it.
And I think to Mr. Colbeck's point, the only thing I would just share is there are many other companies that are on there. That RFP is not just career cruising, the renewal of it. So $125,000 that was spent in this was towards learning and teaching software and online licenses. Career cruising was only $14,000 of that. So just to be aware.
That's why I wish those items would have been separated. Ms. Sells?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda item as recommended by administration of L2B8 with the exclusion of career cruising.
Motion by Ms. Sells, a second by Ms. Prosnick. All in favor? That's Ms. Prosnick, Ms. Hassett, Ms. Timish, Ms. Cox. Oh, that's 7-0. Sorry, Mr. Miller. Motion carries. Okay. If there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and the time is now 9:54. Y'all have a Merry Christmas.